Hello, Galaxy! I'm Chris Perillo, and I'm annoyed by so many things, but there are many things that I also am not annoyed by. Before I dive into the list of annoyances that I have with iOS 16 now, after having used it for about 24 hours or so, right around the same length of the life of this channel, in 24 hours, this channel has gained over 1,000 subscribers, so thank you. I hope to be able to do video for you that you will watch and that you will enjoy. The thing you got to keep in mind, especially when I talk about something that annoys me, is that just because it annoys me doesn't necessarily mean that it has to annoy you. You can sit there and say, well, that doesn't annoy me. Oh, that's not annoying. That doesn't solve a problem for me. That doesn't make something less annoying for me, because I can't just say, oh, great, all I have to do is be you and my problems are solved, because that is wholly impractical. I'm just here to tell you, these are the things that I notice that I don't like. These are the things that by and large keep me sometimes from using a device or using anything, software, anything that might be related to an experience. And it's not about hate, because people automatically jump to that, oh, he hates. There's some things I do hate, but that doesn't mean I hate something to the point where I don't want it to be better. I talk about these things because I'm wanting to be using these devices. I want things to be better. That said, I'm going to tell you about my annoyances. Caveat, it was difficult to come up with a list of annoyances for iOS 16. That was a compliment coming from me. I went through and kind of cleaned house. I got rid of all the traditional folders because, quite honestly, they annoyed me. I was just tired of just having 9 icons on a screen. I'm like, dude, this is just when you tap to move, and sometimes you're trying to tap and hold, and they start jiggling, and it was annoying. Unfortunately, that annoying behavior also happens in the app library. My first annoyance is the springboard. Basically, we've been dealing with the same springboard since iOS 7. And it wasn't great then. It's improved, but man, why can't they just spend a little more time on this? That said, app library is there, and I appreciate having it there because having those apps automatically organized makes it easier. I'm finding that the way that I get to apps anymore is just by searching for it, whether I'm using a Siri command or if I'm searching and just swiping over and then tapping for app library. The search, though, I will say this. App library pulls up, if I search here for, let's say, settings, like it's instantaneous. But if I go back to search here, I typed in search, settings, it takes like 2 or 3 seconds, maybe that's egregious. It takes a while for the results to pull up, probably because it's pulling up so many results. And so I wish that it pulled in results like incrementally rather than just waiting to do a paint when it's received all the results. So the springboard still annoys me. Even in the app library, sometimes I'm just trying to right click, long press to get a menu here, and unfortunately sometimes the apps start jiggling, and I'm like, I don't want that. I don't want to edit. I don't, because then it just creates more of a problem. So I'm done with the traditional springboard. Done, eliminated it, and the jury's still out as to whether or not I'm going to eliminate the icons at the bottom of the home screen. Back to the app library, which for the most part is good. I would say for 99% of the people, this is perfect. This is exactly what it needs to be. People don't organize anything. Coming from someone who organizes pretty much everything, Darth Vader's. They're all organized. They're all together. It's a theme. It's a collection. There are times that I'm looking and I'm like, well, that's not really an app that I would put in that folder. I wish I could move it into another folder, but that would defeat the purpose of the app library. I also, though, wish I could add favorites, like in a certain category, like in utilities. I wish you can say, okay, this is my favorite and that's my favorite, and then have those pinned as the big icons. Unfortunately, that's not possible either, which is a little disappointing. So some minor tweaks to app library I think could go a long way. It's annoying that I'm not able to customize, but that leads me to my next annoyance. I'm so used to Apple just saying this is the way it is that sometimes I don't even go digging to relieve an annoyance or to fix an annoyance. And then I have to dig further and dig further and dig further and realize that there's so much legacy that is in iOS, and I've been saying this for years, it is ripe for a reboot. You just look at settings. It just goes on, and it's sprawling. It's like, okay, I know I can search for things, and that's great, but it's just, there's so much, and some of it's here, and some of it's there, and some of it's over. It needs to be just rethought. And it gets to that point where I don't know if I can tweak something beyond what it is that's staring me in the face. For example, the little search icon, you don't see it on the home screen. The reason why is because you can turn it off. I was annoyed by that. I was talking about this on Twitch when I was recording a video, and someone said, you can turn it off. I'm like, you can? Really? I mean, I thought I went through all the options, the myriad of options, but I totally missed that toggle. So I turned that off. It fixed one of my annoyances. Yay. But I've gotten to the point where Apple just, well, we know best. Then I'm just assuming I can't change that in every intuitive way that I go about changing it. Another annoyance that I've had, and this is a relatively minor one. I'm not sure why. I don't think it's hardware related. I've had some mistaps. And it's not because I'm used to different gestures. Like if I'm like trying to tap something, I kind of have to tap it twice for it to register. And I know I'm tapping fine. There's nothing wrong with my finger is not biased. I've had some mistaps. Minor issue, not a showstopper. It's just something that I've experienced in relation to this, using this phone and looking for things that, not even looking for things that annoy me, just telling you the things that annoy me. That's annoyed me. Talk about it constantly. Judder. There's definitely Judder that still happens on iOS. It's not as bad on 16 as it is on 15. Sorry, that was my initial impression yesterday. But for the most part, it is fluid, but when you've got to scroll and it stops, it freezes and then it jumps. That happens. You're scrolling, stop, jump. It's a very awkward scrolling animation that they've yet to fix. It's not as bad as it used to be, but it's still annoying. I found a massive amount of Judder in messages. I found it, in apps that, whether we're talking default, first party or third party apps that have a lot of images or content that's loading, there's a lot of jank, a lot of Judder. That is unfortunate because I know that this is a fast device. But as I've said, sometimes it's not about the hardware, it's about the hardware running in conjunction with the software. It's about software optimizations. It's the software experience that makes the hardware sing. That's my perspective. The animations, while seemingly faster on iOS 16 over 15, especially, let's say, on the springboard, I feel they are snappier, not as snappy as I'd like them to be. It's kind of annoying. Sometimes I have to wait for an animation to finish. I'm like, let's go. Because the first thing I do when I am using an Android device is I go into developer options and then toggle the setting to go from a 1 to a 0.5 animation speed. Because I'm just like, I can do things so fast. I'm not waiting for an animation. Ain't nobody got time for that. You can turn on reduce motion, but it still takes the same amount of time, and quite honestly, now introduces more anomalies in terms of transitions than was there before. So I wish I had the option to I want to tweak the animation speed, say, let's make things a little zippier. Just a skosh. I know you're Apple and you know what I get it, but it's annoying. I feel I have to wait for animations. Another annoyance, the default keyboard. It has not changed in years, at least in any perceivable way. And quite honestly, once you get used to Gboard, and yes, you can use third-party keyboards on iOS. That's great. Gboard, awesome. Because it's got keyboard shortcuts that quite honestly make it faster for me to type. Easier way to get to numbers. Easier way and faster way to get to certain extended characters, right? Your punctuation marks. And I mean, whereas I find I have to slow down to type on the iOS keyboard. And not that I have to think about it, but it's just like, okay, that feature I can't use because it's not there. And I feel that there are better user features in Gboard than there are in the default Apple keyboard. I've had a couple of instances, much like with Mistaps. I've had screen flashes. Like I've been working in photos before, and like the screen, it seems to flash at times. Like it doesn't know what it's doing, or it's caught in a glitch. Hey man, this is a 0.0 release, and quite honestly, it is stable for a 0.0 release. I am still wholly impressed with iOS 16. That stands. And remember, tomorrow I'm going to be talking about the things that did impress me about iOS 16. That's also a list. That was a little easier to compile than the annoyances, believe it or not. I find that, and with the search button gone, it's not as much of an issue. But they put the search button at the bottom of the home screen, but then over here in App Library, it's at the top. The App Library search is at the top. I'm like, just be consistent, dude. Like, even when I swipe down to do the Spotlight, the keyboard and the search are right there. Why wouldn't it make sense that the App Library field go from the bottom and then swing up with the keyboard popping up? Wouldn't that make more sense, like from a user interface perspective versus jumping from the top? It's just, I don't know. Maybe it makes sense because your App Library and you're looking for settings, right? And then the icons at the top of the screen. But it's not a big deal. I mean, I still have to type it in, so I can just go to the top of the screen, even with the search button at the bottom. But it's that kind of inconsistency that I'm finding with Apple. I'm coming back to that. So another issue that I have, I've got in my notes, is you can't really truly control Control Center. Like, I know they've got a lot of icons, a lot of options, but like, I'm never going to turn on focus. You may love it. I have no need for it. I don't necessarily ever really need to use the now playing. Okay, it's there, great. I can turn off a lot of these icons, right? I may not need those, but I just wish I could maybe move things around much like I can widgets. But this screen here, the configuration for this screen is buried in settings. Widgets you just control right from the desktop, but the Control Center, no, this is what you get. Like, okay, well, why can't I get third-party widgets here? Because I can get widgets on the desktop now on the lock screen. Those lock screen widgets I feel could work just as well in Control Center, although it would probably be less control in that sense. They couldn't call it Control Center anymore. But I just wish there's more flexibility, or at least inline control of this particular page on the screen. The apps, and this is something that is more prevalent, I feel, on the iPhone than on Mac OS. The apps just kind of feel inconsistent. Like it definitely feels like different teams are developing different apps. Whether we're talking about search field sizes, whether we're talking about horizontal rules, whether we're talking about placements of icons, and there's no consistency. And I could forgive that in the years of skeuomorphism because each app had its own language, right? It had its own design. But like in the era that they're in now with flat design, it's like if you're gonna do it, like do it. Like if these are your first party apps, make them feel like they are first party. You can forgive it with third party apps, but in terms of a default experience, I just find that Apple's apps, which are good and they work well and they run well, I'm not sure they're where they need to be, but I've felt that way for quite some time. So I'm just gonna wrap up by saying it feels like iOS is ready for a reboot. Broken record time, but there's just so much. They just pile one on top of the feature on top of feature on top of feature. It's like this and that. No, we're gonna put the settings over there. Then we're gonna put it here. No, this is how you manage this, and this is you control it by doing this here, but you control it this way by doing that there. Like, just be consistent. Be consistent. That's all I ask. Just a degree of consistency. I feel, I'm gonna dovetail this. Not that it's a direct comparison because it isn't, but Samsung, despite it not owning Android, has, I feel, a better consistency with their default apps and their default experience than Apple does. And remember, Apple controls their entire ecosystem, top to bottom. So it's a matter of priority. It's ready. We're ready. We are ready for a new paradigm, a new design language with iOS to just take everything you've been piling up and not just pile up more on top of it, but actually reimagine, rethink what is going on with the operating system, because I feel it is long overdue.